Hi folks, we're Tassless today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to return to a subject I've covered many times before about the neutrality of judges in courts of law. Now, if you look at the constitutions of any Western country and even more countries besides, if you look at the constitution and the role of the judiciary, it's very, very clear and I think made very clear in all these different constitutions that the judiciary, the judges, must be completely neutral referees, neutral adjudicators. They have no political interest, no financial interest, no interest whatsoever. They look at the law, the facts, the evidence, the tested evidence, and they make a ruling as a completely neutral adjudicator and umpire, referee, call it what you like. Now, did that system work well over time? Well, it sort of waxed and waned. In some cases, some periods of history, the judiciary have been somewhat partisan in one direction or another. The refinements of the law, the separation of powers, didn't really sort of occur meaningfully until the later 1600s, and we're looking at Britain here as an example of that, the separation of powers. It began as sort of really an informal agreement, which then spread. Then you have writs of habeas corpus, where the government just can't rando arrest folks and throw them in the slammer indefinitely, these sorts of things. But importantly, it was a set of rules and processes, legal processes that everyone agreed on. Now, were the margins pushed here and there? They were, but the centrality of it held that the judiciary must be impartial, and that people who were being appointed to judgeships, and I remember this as a kid, the judges were, you would look for scholars of law, people that believed in the law and its understanding, its intricacies, and its these sorts of things, and those were the people that were appointed as judges, legal scholars. Now, the idea of activists creeping into the law, but certainly from the 1960s onwards, the law was seen as something that kept the vested interests in power, and the law protected the bad guys, it was seen. Now, this was a misunderstanding, because the law protected the bad guys but equally protected others. The principle of equality before the law was probably more closely realized then than it was or has been ever since, really. And this was the move by activists to say, well, we've got to get into the legal schools and the legal colleges and the universities, and we've got to start appointing activists. And so the law was perceived as an instrument of social engineering, not as a sober reflection of. And at this point, of course, the neutrality of the judges was lost. Now, what nobody foresaw was the aggressive exercise in appointing as many activist judges as possible to be with grim determination not put legal scholars. There were still legal scholars around, but to not put them into judgeships and instead put in radical, airheaded, silly little girly type activists and give them jobs as judges. Nobody foresaw that, and certainly nobody foresaw the extent of it. So the idea that the law is the neutral adjudicator is laughed at by vast swathes of the activist set. And you look at a recent ruling in, say, the Tesla. In fact, here's probably a better one. I had another one in mind, but somebody firebombed a Tesla dealership in the United States, causing substantial damage, and I think it was like a Molotov cocktail or something like that. So they were found and arrested and under federal charges, I think one of which was a terrorism charge. So Now, the political left, given that the person firebombed a Tesla dealership, well, they were indirectly almost exhorted to do so by the propaganda machine in the media and the Democrats and so on. And they can't have been too bright or sensible. I mean, you don't go around, no matter what your political beliefs are or not, you don't go around, firebombing anything, let alone a business. Now, this was against supposed to be, with resistance, fighting back against Musk, and the person was probably, again, simple-minded, but filled with that sort of righteousness in their cause that only someone that age really, well, no, actually people of other age, only the simple-minded can be drawn to. So they firebombed the Tesla dealership, and that's leading resistance against Musk. So they get arrested. Now, a judge, the defense, I mean, who's paying for this person's defense? They seem to have an army of lawyers. I mean, who's paying for that? Where are these lawyers come? Is it just some cheap legal aid lawyer that got appointed? In which case they'd be a little better than an intern. We're not talking high-class legal defense here, far from it. So why was a very motivated, very creative lawyer appointed to this person? You don't get those in legal aid. Now, if it's not legal aid, who's paying for these lawyers? And if you look at the money, certainly as I understand it, that's being put up for the defense of this person, again, where is that money coming from? Who's paying for all this? I can't get that sort of legal defense if I go and do something. Why is this, I don't know, 19 or 20-year-old person who's, as I understand it, since they committed the crime, has decided since they allegedly committed the crime, has decided to say that they're trans. This seems a bit over the top. I mean, is anyone buying that? Nonetheless, the defense goes to a judge and says, "Oh, look, Billy Bob, I can't remember the guy's name. Billy Bob is trans and needs special gender affirming care. Can't get that to the standard necessary. Again, who's paying for this gender affirming care? This person doesn't appear to be an individual of financial means, so who's paying for that? So who's paying for lawyers? Who's paying for the gender affirming care? Are they really going to get gender affirming care? Is it nothing more than a legal ploy? I mean, what's the go here?" So the judge, they managed to find an activist judge. He goes, "Yep, no problem. We'll let them out." Nah, off you go. Go on. Now, that's not an easy gig. How do you create that sort of bullshit legal defense? How do you find an activist judge that's going to, at that precise moment you want to hear the case, one of the most activist judges in the whole of the United States gets appointed to hear the case? I mean, I don't buy that's just an accident or a coincidence. I don't buy that for a minute. So again, we need to come back to, and I've mentioned this a number of times, the administration in the court, the court clerks, the court administrators, the court operations people, all that sort of thing. They too are all activists. I'm sure you'll find an exception, but they're all activists, rabid activists that are communicating with, in liaison with, interacting with the NGO activist globalist establishment. So it's one mass of people. All their interns will be from the activist NGOs. They're a total mass of activists. So they are coordinating and making sure the case is being heard. They say, "Okay, no, Judge Billie Jean, hear that? She'll let the guy out, no question. We'll arrange it with her beforehand. We'll make sure her judge's assistants, they all have, is one of us, they're an activist, and they'll talk to the judge first, make sure, we'll write it up for her what her verdict is going to be, and then she can just deliver that verdict on the thing, and we'll get this coming." He's bombed a Musk dealership, so he's acted in a good cause, fighting back against Hitler, and so we can't have that guy in prison. I mean, that's just unacceptable. He's a good cause. We believe in the cause, and he believes in the cause. We all believe in the cause. Let's all hold hands here. And so it's prearranged which judge is going to hear it, and the verdict is prearranged. Indeed, it's pre-scripted. That's the level and the depth and the width of the activism that's going on in courts all across the Western world today. So this idea that in the Constitution that judges are neutral adjudicators, which is written in there, that's gone. It's finished. I'm sure you'll still find judges that are like that, but it doesn't exist anymore. It exists in areas of law where there's no social justice causes that are sort of relate to it. That you may still get. But if you look at whether it's divorce courts, whether it's firebombing, Tesla or something, any of these sort of things, you're going to find activist judges. And if all the judges in that jurisdiction are not activists, the court administration and operations people will make sure that the activist judge gets to hear that case. And you see that all over the world. In Australia, there are people that have created all sorts of mayhem on, say, climate change issues. They get off with a slap on the wrist, all their legal expenses paid. And this really needs to be chased down. If I spit on the sidewalk and get arrested, I can't get free legal aid. But I'm a straight white male. So now this is one of the biggest challenges, I think, that face the Western world today, and certainly in the US, is to return to the constitutional bedrock where judges are neutral adjudicators. If you can't be a neutral adjudicator, you don't have a job anymore. I mean, it really needs to be that severe. Now, the mechanism and device that removes judges or makes sure that they are forced to recuse themselves, that must be a priority, I believe, of the Trump administration. Because right now, activist judges believing their causes are righteous and all this sort of stuff, believing that the law exists as a social engineering tool, they're everywhere. And we have to, we have to put a stop to it. You've been with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.